I never thought I'd end up driving a delivery truck down empty backroads in rural Georgia. But life doesn't exactly give you a choice, does it? The lumber mill where I'd worked for almost 8 years shut down overnight. One meeting, one announcement, and that was it. My paycheck was gone, the bills weren't, and the debt collectors didn't care about my excuses. The electricity bill stacked up, the water bill piled on top of that, groceries were getting harder to cover, and after a while I stopped keeping track of the late notices. So when this job came up, driving deliveries for a third-shift trucking company, I didn't think twice. The pay was decent, almost suspiciously decent, and they mentioned one thing that stuck with me. Most people don't last long on the night routes. At the time, I thought it meant exhaustion or boredom, maybe crime. I didn't know it meant something far worse. My first night, I sat in the cabin of a company truck, the kind that already smelled like old sweat and diesel no matter how much air freshener you shoved into the vents. I was adjusting the rearview mirror when the radio flicked on by itself. Static hissed through the speakers and then a voice broke through. My voice. It was me, no mistaking it, but rougher, strained, like it had been dragged through sandpaper, and it kept repeating the same sentence over and over in this cracked, urgent whisper. Don't stop at mile 46. Don't stop at mile 46. I froze with my hand still on the mirror. I hadn't touched the dial, hadn't even thought about turning the radio on, and yet there I was, warning myself. I reached for the knob, twisted it off, but the voice kept going, echoing a few seconds longer until it finally cut out. My skin prickled like someone had opened a freezer door behind me. My palms were slick with sweat, and before I could get my head around what had just happened, someone rapped hard on the driver's side window. It was Harris, the manager, a man in his 50s, shoulders like a bulldog, his face a permanent scowl etched deep from too many cigarettes and too little sleep. He shoved a folded piece of paper against the glass until I rolled it down. The paper was creased and yellowed, the kind of copy that had been photocopied too many times. On the front, bold letters at the top read, "Rules for night routes." I snorted. A company handout? Maybe a safety checklist? Harris didn't laugh. He just stared at me with eyes that had seen too much. If you want to make it back here in one piece by sunrise, you read this. You remember every word. Don't argue. Don't ask questions. Just do it. Something in his tone hit harder than the words. I glanced down at the page and skimmed the first few lines. Rule number 1. Never leave the truck after midnight unless there's real blood on the road. Rule number 2. If you see a truck identical to yours, do not pass it. Do not look directly at the driver. Rule number 3. Never under any circumstance stop at mile 46, even if someone begs. My throat went dry. These weren't safety tips. They read like instructions from some urban legend post buried on the internet. I forced a chuckle, tried to play it off. Come on, is this some kind of hazing? Company tradition? Harris shoved the paper back into my chest, his voice low but sharp. You think I'm joking, kid? You won't be laughing when it's your face staring back from the driver's seat of another truck. Memorize it. Stick to it. That's the only reason I'm still standing here. The grin I'd faked slid off my face. Harris turned and walked away without another word. I sat there gripping the wheel, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard on the radio and what I'd just been handed. None of it fit. None of it felt real. But then again, the hollow look in Harris's eyes told me it was real enough. I started the engine. The truck roared to life, shaking like an animal waking up after hibernation. The clock on the dash read 11:47 p.m. The lot was nearly empty, just rows of silent rigs sitting under orange sodium lamps, buzzing faintly in the humid Georgia air. I pulled out, the road opening up ahead of me like a black river. The countryside stretched wide on both sides, fields flat and lifeless under the pale wash of moonlight. My headlights carved tunnels through the dark. Everything seemed still, calm even, but I couldn't stop staring at that folded sheet of paper on the passenger seat. 9 rules. Rules that made no sense, and yet they hummed in my head with the same weight as that voice on the radio. Especially rule number 3. Never stop at mile 46. I'd never even heard of mile 46 until 10 minutes ago, but suddenly it felt like the most dangerous place on earth. My own voice had told me so. And if it really had been me, if somehow it was, I'd be an idiot not to listen. I stuffed the paper into my jacket pocket, adjusted my grip on the wheel, and forced myself to focus on the road. The night was just beginning, and already I knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary job. It was going to be a fight just to make it to morning. The road stretched out ahead of me like an endless black ribbon, the yellow lines glowing faintly under the high beams, the hum of the engine the only sound keeping me company. The air outside was thick, humid, and carried the faint smell of wet pine. I thought about Harris's words about the paper folded in my pocket, and I told myself I wasn't the kind of guy who bought into ghost stories or urban legends. I'd been through worse things in my life, job layoffs, fights that left me with scars, nights where I'd had to choose between gas and groceries. Rules written on a crumpled piece of paper shouldn't scare me, but they did. They sat heavy in my chest, each one like a weight. The clock on the dash ticked past midnight, and I gripped the wheel tighter without even realizing it. My route was supposed to take me along State Route 19, through a patch of farmland, down into the woods, and eventually past a couple of ghost towns before looping back near the interstate by sunrise. It was quiet country. Too quiet, maybe. The kind of place where you wouldn't even see a porch light for miles. My headlights washed over an old wooden sign on the side of the road, so weathered the paint was peeling off. I slowed down just enough to read it. Mile 39. My pulse jumped a little. That meant mile 46 was just up ahead, 7 miles away. I told myself I wouldn't even think about stopping. That was the rule. Just keep driving, eyes forward, don't let anything trick you. Easier said than done. Around mile 41, the radio flickered to life again, the static crackling before a voice cut through. It wasn't my voice this time. It was a woman, faint, almost drowned under the hiss. She was crying. "Please," she whispered, "please stop the truck. I'm hurt, I'm bleeding. I can't, please don't leave me here." My stomach knotted. I reached for the radio knob but froze. Rule number 1 slammed into my head. Never leave the truck after midnight unless there's real blood on the road. My hands shook on the wheel. Was this the kind of thing the rules were talking about? A trap, or was it real? I forced myself to glance in the mirrors, scanning the road behind me. Nothing but empty asphalt and the red glow of my taillights. No figures, no cars, nothing. I slammed the knob off and the radio died, silence filling the cabin again. I swallowed hard and pushed the truck faster, the engine groaning as I tried to outrun the sound of her voice echoing in my skull. By mile 44, my nerves were frayed. I hadn't smoked in months, but I found myself patting my pockets for a cigarette that wasn't there. My hands were slick with sweat, and every shadow on the roadside looked like it might stand up and walk. Then I saw it. Up ahead in the middle of the road, something dark sprawled across both lanes. I hit the brakes, tires screeching as the truck shuddered to a stop. My heart pounded as I leaned forward. It was a body. A man lying face down on the asphalt, limbs twisted, blood pooling beneath his head. My throat closed up. Rule number 1, never leave the truck after midnight unless there's real blood on the road. There was blood. Thick, dark, glistening under the beams. My gut screamed, no, keep going, this is what they want. But my hands were already fumbling for the seatbelt. I had to check. What if it was real? What if I drove past a man bleeding out and left him to die? My boots hit the pavement and the night air swallowed me whole, hot and wet and filled with the sound of cicadas. I took a step closer. The smell of copper hit my nose, sharp and unmistakable. I crouched down, reaching out with a trembling hand to touch his shoulder. That's when his head snapped up. His eyes locked on mine, wide and unblinking, the whites too bright under the headlights. His mouth opened in a grin so wide it split unnaturally across his face, and before I could even react, he spoke in my own voice. Mile 46, he whispered, the grin stretching. Don't forget. I stumbled back, my legs nearly giving out. The blood I'd seen so clearly a moment ago was gone, the asphalt dry and clean. There was no body, no man, just empty road. My stomach lurched. I bolted back to the truck, slamming the door shut and jamming the lock down. My chest heaved as I sat there, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I pressed the gas, the tires squealed, and I sped down the highway like the devil himself was on my tail. The mile markers blurred past until I saw it. Mile 46. The sign leaned crooked in the weeds, half hidden by overgrown grass, and right beyond it was a little dirt pull-off. And standing in the pull-off was another truck. Identical to mine. Same color, same make, same company logo. Its headlights were off. Its engine silent, but I could see the silhouette of someone sitting in the driver's seat. My hands went numb. Rule number 2. If you see a truck identical to yours, do not pass it. Do not look directly at the driver. I tried not to look, I really did, but curiosity hooked me like a fish. As I rolled past, my eyes flicked sideways. The figure inside was me. My face, my posture. my hands gripping the wheel just like mine, except this version of me turned and looked straight at me, grinning wide with that same unnatural split. I jerked my eyes forward, heart hammering, and stomped the gas. The engine roared, the speedometer climbed, and I didn't breathe until the truck was swallowed by the darkness behind me. My hands shook so badly I could barely keep the wheel straight. My own reflection, sitting in another truck, watching me like it had been waiting. I swallowed bile and forced myself to breathe. I couldn't stop. I couldn't break the rules. They weren't suggestions. They were the only reason I was still alive. The road wound deeper into the woods, the tree line closing in on both sides until it felt like driving through a tunnel of shadows. The moon vanished behind clouds, and for a while I couldn't tell if I was even moving forward or just spinning in circles. I thought about Harris, about the way his eyes had looked when he handed me the paper. He knew. He'd seen this before. Maybe he'd seen worse. And if I wanted to make it back by sunrise, I had to take every word of those rules like gospel. I pressed on, the glow of the dashboard clock crawling toward 2 a.m., my body running on pure adrenaline. That's when the radio crackled back to life. And this time the voice wasn't a stranger's, it wasn't mine either. It was Harris. His voice came through broken, frantic, like he was shouting into a storm. "If you're hearing this," he rasped, "you've already seen it. Don't trust the next turn. Don't." The line cut to static. My blood ran cold. The next turn, I leaned forward over the wheel, staring hard into the dark. The road ahead split into a fork, two paths curving off into the trees. One to the left, one to the right. Neither marked. Neither familiar. The rules didn't say a damn thing about forks in the road. I slowed the truck down until it crawled forward, the tires crunching gravel as the beam of my headlight swept across the fork in the road, left and right, like two mouths waiting to swallow me whole. Harris's voice still echoed in my skull, fractured and desperate, telling me not to trust the next turn. The problem was there were two, and neither one looked any safer than the other. The left path dipped down immediately into heavier trees, the shadows crowding together so thick I could barely see 10 feet past the bend. The right looked straighter, but the surface was rougher, cracked asphalt with weeds pushing up through the center like veins. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles burned. The paper in my pocket crinkled when I shifted, the rules whispering against my thigh. None of them mentioned forks. None of them gave me an answer for this. That was the first time it really hit me. The rules weren't complete. They'd never covered everything. They couldn't. I checked the dash clock. 2:07 a.m. The longer I sat here, the more I felt the weight of the night pressing down, like the trees themselves leaned closer to watch what I would choose. Sweat trickled down my spine. I thought of turning back, but the idea made my stomach clench. The rules had said nothing about going backward either, but every instinct screamed it was worse than choosing wrong. So I did what I always did when cornered. I picked the lesser evil. I flicked on the high beams, muttered a prayer I hadn't spoken since I was a kid, and steered right. The truck groaned as the tires rolled onto the cracked pavement, each bump jolting my body. But at least I could see further than 10 feet ahead. The trees here stood taller, their trunks white and pale like bone in the headlights, and the farther I drove, the more I realized something was off. The woods were too quiet. No cicadas, no frogs, no nightbirds, just the hum of the engine and the pounding of my heart. My chest tightened with every mile, like the silence itself was pressing in. By mile 49, I started to relax a little. The road stretched straight as a ruler, and a faint glow appeared on the horizon like the suggestion of a town or maybe just distant headlights. I told myself I'd made the right choice. That was when I saw the sign. It was nailed to a tree on the right side of the road, half hidden by vines. The letters were sloppy, hand-painted in red. "Do not trust the road." My stomach dropped. The glow ahead grew brighter, and I realized it wasn't a town. It was headlights. Another truck barreling straight toward me. I slammed the brakes, heart hammering, the horn blaring as I swerved to the side. The oncoming truck didn't slow. It roared past inches from my mirror, the blast of air shaking my cab. In the brief second its lights swept across me, I saw the driver, my face again pale and grinning, hands locked on the wheel like claws. My double disappeared into the night behind me, leaving nothing but the stink of diesel in the air. I gasped for breath, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I almost turned around right then. Rules be damned, but the glow in my mirrors made me freeze. The headlights reappeared, closer this time, the engine of the other truck growling low like a predator stalking prey. I pressed the pedal to the floor. The speedometer crept higher, 60, 70, 80. But no matter how fast I went, the lights behind me didn't shrink. They grew. The bastard was chasing me. I gritted my teeth, eyes locked on the road, whispering the rules under my breath like a chant. Don't leave the truck, don't stop at mile 46, don't look at him. The chase stretched on for miles, my chest burning, sweat stinging my eyes, until the cracked road ended suddenly in a narrow bridge. Wooden planks stretched across a black river. The guardrails rusted and low. I had no choice. I floored it, the truck rattling as I hit the boards. The headlights behind me blazed brighter, the roar of the engine deafening, and for a second I thought he'd ram me clean off the bridge, but halfway across the sound stopped. I risked a glance in the mirror. Nothing. No lights, no truck, just the empty span fading into the trees. My hands shook violently as I pulled over on the far side, sucking in ragged breaths. I killed the headlights and sat in the dark, the engine idling low, trying to make sense of what just happened. My double hadn't just appeared this time, he'd chased me. He wanted me off the road. Maybe worse. The rules had warned me not to pass him, not to look. But what the hell was I supposed to do when he came for me? My pulse pounded in my ears as I fumbled the paper from my pocket. I read the rules again, one by one, hoping I'd missed something. Some hidden line that explained what to do when the road itself turned against you. My fingers froze when I saw it. A line I could have sworn hadn't been there before. Rule number 9, if the road splits, always take the left. My vision swam. My throat went dry. I had chosen right. The paper trembled in my hand. I pressed it flat against the dash light, staring at the words, tracing the sloppy ink like it might vanish if I blinked. But it didn't. It stayed clear as day, mocking me. I shoved it back into my pocket and slammed the truck into gear. Whatever I'd done, whatever choice I'd made, I couldn't undo it now. All I could do was follow the road and pray it led me somewhere I could survive until sunrise. The trees grew thicker again, branches arching overhead like ribs, and the glow of the dashboard clock crept toward 3 a.m. My eyes burned with exhaustion, every bump in the road jarring me closer to panic. That was when I saw the figure. A man standing dead center in the lane, facing me. I hit the brakes hard enough to make the seatbelt cut into my chest. The truck skidded to a stop 20 feet from him, headlights washing over his body. He was tall, thin, wearing a delivery uniform just like mine. My uniform. His head tilted to the side, jerky, unnatural, and I realized with a sick twist that I was staring at myself again. Not in a truck this time, just standing there. He raised a hand slowly, palm out like he was signaling me to stop. Then he mouthed a word. I couldn't hear it, but I read it clear as day. Run! My skin crawled. I slammed the gear shift into reverse, tires squealing as I backed away. But before I could turn, movement flickered at the tree line. Dozens of shapes stepped out of the dark surrounding the road, pale faces catching the beams of my headlights. Every one of them was me. Identical. Blank-eyed, grinning, moving closer with each step. My chest seized as I threw the truck into drive and floored it, swerving past the figure in the road. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel them, their eyes burning holes into the back of my skull as I sped deeper into the woods. The forest swallowed me whole as I sped away from that swarm of faces, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might tear through my chest, the steering wheel slick with sweat under my palms. The dashboard clock glowed 3:18 a.m., and all I could think was how many hours were left before sunrise, how many miles of road I still had to cover, and whether the rules in my pocket were even enough to save me. The further I drove, the more the trees seemed to blur into one endless wall, until the sudden flicker of neon in the distance made me blink twice, just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. A gas station. Its fluorescent sign buzzed faintly, casting a sickly glow over the cracked pavement of the lot. The pumps looked ancient, their paint peeling, but the lights were on, and in that moment it felt like a lifeline. Rule number 3 surfaced in my memory. You may stop for gas, but only at the stations with both lights on. This one had 3, 2 flickering and 1 burned out. I hesitated, foot hovering over the brake. Did that count? The words repeated in my head, both lights on, but there were 3. Which 2 mattered? As I rolled closer, I noticed something else. A figure standing by the door. At first I thought it was another double, another version of me waiting. But as the beams washed over him, I saw he was older, taller, wearing a faded attendant's uniform with the name patch torn off. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken. But when he lifted a hand to wave me in, it didn't feel like the grins I'd seen before. It felt tired, almost human. Against every instinct screaming at me to keep driving, I pulled into the lot and killed the engine. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the crackle of the neon sign and the faint buzz of insects against the glass. I slid the paper out of my pocket again, scanning it under the dome light, hoping the rules might have shifted again, might have given me clarity. Rule number 3 was still the same. Both lights on. But when I glanced back up, both flickering bulbs over the pumps burned steady, clear and white as if they'd never faltered. I stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, the heavy air pressing close. The man by the door watched me approach, his expression unreadable, and when I was close enough, he rasped, "Rough night?" His voice was sandpaper, low and strained, but it didn't sound like mine. It didn't echo that same uncanny mimicry I'd heard before. I nodded, unsure if I should speak. "You're not supposed to talk much out here," he said, eyes darting to the tree line as if afraid something might be listening. "Not after 3, not unless you want them to notice." I swallowed hard, throat dry. "Who are you?" He smirked faintly, a ghost of amusement. "Just someone who's been running this route longer than I should have. Harris sends the fresh meat my way sometimes." Hearing Harris's name made my chest tighten. "You know him?" The man's smirk faded. "Knew him? Haven't seen him in weeks. If his voice came through the radio, that means he's gone. Or worse." His gaze locked on mine, sharp and serious. "Did he give you the rules?" I nodded, pulling the paper halfway out of my pocket. The man's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "Don't show them out here. They change when you're not looking. You think you're following the list, but the list is following you." His eyes burned into mine. "You understand?" My pulse spiked and I nodded quickly. He let go, sighing. "Good, fill your tank, keep moving. Don't linger. They like when you linger." I hurried to the pump, sliding my card with trembling fingers. The nozzle clicked into place, the smell of gasoline sharp in the air. Every second stretched like an eternity, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the trees across the lot were watching me, that if I blinked, I'd see faces pressed between the branches. When the pump clicked off, I replaced the nozzle and turned back toward the truck. That's when I saw it. In the reflection of the station's glass door, the attendant wasn't standing still anymore. He was grinning, wide and wrong, and his eyes glowed faint under the buzzing light. My stomach flipped and I spun around, but the man was gone. The lot was empty, the door closed, no sign of him at all. My chest heaved as I scrambled back into the cab, slamming the locks down, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the keys. I fired the engine, the headlights sweeping the lot, but there was nothing. Just silence and the faint hiss of the neon. I floored it back onto the road, heart pounding, the paper in my pocket suddenly heavier than ever. The rules hadn't saved me there, they'd tricked me. The bulbs had changed, the man had shifted, and I realized with sick certainty that I couldn't trust even the rules completely. They were alive, shifting with the night, watching me as much as I was watching them. The miles crawled by, each shadow deeper than the last, until the clock read 3:57 a.m. That was when the static returned, sharp and violent, the radio screeching before a voice cut through. Not Harris this time, not mine either. It was the attendant. "Should have kept moving," he whispered, the words dragging like nails on metal. "They like when you linger." My skin crawled as the radio hissed, then cut out, and in the rearview mirror, just for a second, I saw headlights behind me again, twin beams glowing hungry in the dark. The road wound tighter as the clock ticked past 4:20 a.m., my headlights carving tunnels through the trees that pressed closer than ever, branches arching overhead like ribs. The memory of that gas station clung to me, the attendant's voice on the radio echoing in my head, and every mile that clicked past on the odometer only reminded me that the rules were bending, shifting, maybe even alive. My eyes burned from staring at the mirror, because those headlights still hovered far back on the road, never too close, never falling away. They followed like a predator pacing me, patient, waiting. I tried to push the thought aside and focus on the route. The paper in my pocket felt heavier with each minute, like it wanted me to pull it out, to check again, but I resisted. I couldn't trust it anymore. Instead, I gripped the wheel and counted down the next landmark Harris had circled on the map, a junction where Route 7 met a smaller dirt road. That was supposed to be my halfway point. My chest eased when the intersection finally came into view, a crooked sign half swallowed by ivy. But there was something else. Parked at the shoulder, hazard lights blinking, was another delivery truck. My heart leapt into my throat. Another driver. Another human being. I slowed cautiously, pulling up behind him. The other truck was from the same company, same logo, same faded paint, but its back door hung open slightly, swaying with the breeze. That alone should have been enough to keep me driving. Rule number 5 scrawled across the paper whispered in my head. Do not stop for stranded vehicles unless you recognize the driver. But when the cab door opened and a man climbed out waving both arms, relief surged through me anyway. He was middle-aged, stocky, with a thick beard and a reflective vest, his face pale in my headlights. Thank God, he called out, jogging toward me. I thought I was alone out here. My pulse hammered, torn between suspicion and the desperate need for another living soul. I cracked the window a few inches, keeping my hand on the lock. Who are you? The man stopped just short of the hood, breathing hard, eyes darting to the dark woods. Name's Callahan. Been driving this route for 15 years. Truck died on me an hour ago. Battery's shot. You got a radio in there? Please tell me it works. His voice shook, not with mimicry but with exhaustion. Fear. The kind of edge only real people carried. Still, the rules clawed at my brain. Recognize the driver. Did I know him? No. Did Harris ever mention Callahan? No. My silence stretched too long and Callahan's face twisted, frustrated. Don't tell me you're one of them, he snapped, his voice dropping lower. Don't play games with me, kid. The tension snapped like wire. Prove you're real, I blurted, my own voice sharp with panic. Callahan's brows knitted. What the hell kind of question is that? Look. He reached into his pocket suddenly and I flinched back, fumbling for the gear shift, but he only pulled out a battered photograph. He slapped it against my window. It showed him younger, smiling awkwardly with 2 kids on his shoulders. That enough for you? My throat tightened. It looked real. Too real to fake. I exhaled shakily and unlocked the door. Callahan climbed in fast, slamming it shut and locking it again, his chest heaving. Jesus Christ, he muttered, rubbing his face. I thought I was done for. The cab felt smaller with him inside, the air thick. I kept glancing at the mirror, but the headlights behind us had vanished. Gone completely. My stomach knotted. Did you see anyone out here? I asked. Callahan gave a bitter laugh. Kid, I've seen more than anyone should. The faces, the doubles, the lights in the trees. And the rules. Christ, you got the rules? My head jerked toward him. You know them? He gave me a look that was half pity, half warning. We all get the rules sooner or later. Some listen, some don't make it. Harris gave me mine years ago. Man was a bastard, but he knew his stuff. My chest clenched at Harris's name. He's gone, I said quietly. Callahan's face fell, the lines around his eyes deepening. Damn it, figures, this route eats people alive. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Callahan turned, eyes hard. Listen to me. Those headlights you saw following you, don't ever let them get close. Don't ever stop if they flash you. They're not asking for help. They're asking for you. His words sank like lead and I realized he knew too much to be lying. But as the miles passed under the tires and the clock pushed toward 5 a.m., doubt crept in anyway. The rules were never clear. Don't stop unless you recognize the driver. Did a photograph count as recognition? Did a desperate man's fear outweigh the risk? My grip tightened on the wheel and I realized too late that letting him in might have already broken a rule. The radio crackled suddenly, the static shrill. Callahan stiffened, his eyes snapping to it. A voice spilled through, faint but unmistakable. My voice. He's not Callahan, it whispered. Get him out. My blood ran cold. Callahan's head turned slowly toward me, his eyes wide, mouth twitching in a smile that didn't belong. What did it say? He asked, his voice a little too smooth now, a little too steady. My knuckles whitened on the wheel, heart slamming against my ribs. I couldn't answer. I couldn't breathe. And in the dim glow of the dashboard, his reflection in the glass didn't quite move the same way he did. The cab was suddenly too small for both of us, the smell of diesel, sweat, and old vinyl pressing in as the truck hummed along the empty road. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly the leather bit into my palms, but my eyes weren't on the road anymore. They were on the man beside me, or the thing pretending to be him. Callahan sat stiff, eyes locked forward, his jaw tight like he could feel my suspicion cutting through the silence. The radio's static still echoed in my head, my own voice warning me to get him out. Every rule I'd read, every whispered warning Harris had muttered over the years, came crashing down on me at once, and I realized that in this moment, Nothing mattered more than figuring out whether the man breathing beside me was human or something else. I tried to steady my voice. "So, Callahan, you said you've been on this route for 15 years. Tell me something only a driver would know." His head turned slowly, his expression unreadable in the dashboard glow. "Like what?" "The halfway marker," I pressed, trying to keep the edge from my tone. "What do you see when you reach it?" He smirked faintly, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Depends on whether you're looking out the window or into the woods." That answer chilled me, too vague, too clever, like he was dodging. My throat tightened and I decided to push harder. "What was your last delivery stop?" Callahan tapped his fingers on his knee, casual, too casual. "Warehouse in Macon, same as you. Drop-off, pickup, long night." He leaned closer suddenly, his eyes glinting. "You want me to list the exact pallet numbers too?" My chest burned with panic, but I forced a laugh that cracked in the middle. "Relax, man. Just making conversation." His face softened for a split second, like he'd won something, but I caught it. The reflection in the passenger window, that faint double image cast by the dashboard light. It didn't blink when he did. My heart punched against my ribs. I remembered the rules. Watch the reflections. Trust them more than the person. My gut screamed at me to stop the truck, to throw him out onto the asphalt. But then his hand moved, pulling the photograph from earlier back out of his pocket. He shoved it toward me, shaking it in my face. "These are my kids. I'm real. What the hell is wrong with you?" His voice cracked with desperation now, sweat dripping down his temple, and I froze because he sounded so human, so raw, that part of me wanted to believe him. The photo trembled between his fingers. The girl's smile, the boy's missing tooth, the man younger but recognizably him. It all screamed reality. And yet the radio's voice gnawed at me. "He's not Callahan." My mind spun, two truths slamming together until I couldn't breathe. The truck swerved slightly, tires biting the gravel shoulder before I corrected, my vision blurring with panic. "If you're real," I said hoarsely, "then tell me the last rule." "You've been doing this long enough. You said Harris gave you your list." "What's the last rule?" Callahan's eyes flickered. Just for a second. Barely noticeable. But it was there, like a curtain twitching in the wind. His lips parted. "Rule 12, he muttered, almost to himself. "Kill your reflection before it kills you." The words sank into me like ice water because they were right. That was the last rule, one I wasn't supposed to know yet. My stomach turned over. "How do you know that?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He stared at me and his face twisted into something I couldn't name. Not anger, not fear, but recognition. Like he realized too late that he'd slipped. The air between us turned heavy, suffocating. His hand darted toward the glove compartment fast as lightning, and instinct roared through me. I slammed my elbow into him, the truck swerving as he grunted, the photo scattering to the floor. I fought to keep control of the wheel, my pulse hammering in my ears, but Callahan wasn't going down easy. He clawed at my arm, his strength unnatural, his grip cold as iron. "You don't get it," he hissed, voice layered with something else, deeper, distorted. "I'm the only one keeping you alive." My blood ran cold because maybe he believed it. Maybe there was a sliver of truth buried in the lie. My knuckles cracked as I yanked the truck onto the shoulder, tires screaming, headlights cutting across the trees. I slammed the shifter into park, the truck lurching violently, and grabbed the crowbar wedged beside the seat. Callahan lunged, his mouth opening in a guttural sound that wasn't human. I swung with everything I had, the metal connecting with his shoulder, sending him crashing into the door. The window cracked but didn't shatter. He lay there breathing hard, his eyes fixed on me, not blinking, not moving. For a moment I thought it was over, that he was down. But then his reflection in the glass moved first, sitting up, smiling wider than his real mouth did. My stomach flipped, bile rising in my throat. The rule screamed in my head. "Kill your reflection." My chest heaved, sweat pouring down my back as I raised the crowbar again, torn between striking the man or the image in the window. Callahan's lips moved, whispering so faintly I barely heard it. "If you hit the wrong one, you'll never wake up." My arms trembled, my brain tearing in two directions, every nerve screaming that no matter what choice I made, I was already too late. The cab shook with my ragged breathing, the crowbar slick in my hands as the figure of Callahan slumped against the passenger door. His chest rising shallow, his eyes fixed on me with something halfway between fury and pity, but in the cracked glass of the side window, his reflection grinned, wide and wrong. Teeth too many, eyes unblinking, a mockery of his face that seemed alive on its own. The rule screamed in my head, "Kill your reflection before it kills you." My pulse hammered like a war drum as both images, the man beside me and the shadow in the glass, seemed to move out of sync, one real and one impossibly aware. I had seconds to choose, and the weight of it nearly paralyzed me. Callahan groaned, his voice weak, human. Don't do it, kid. It's not me." But the reflection mouthed the same words a split second later, too perfectly timed, like an echo from a broken speaker. My sanity frayed. I raised the crowbar and swung hard into the glass. The window exploded in shards, the reflection's face shattering into splinters of light. Callahan screamed, thrashing violently, his body convulsing as if I'd struck him instead. His skin rippled, contorting, veins darkening like ink spreading under his flesh. His jaw cracked wider than it should, and his hands clawed at me with inhuman strength. Adrenaline roared through me as I kicked him back against the broken door, glass slicing into his arms. He shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and for a second his face flickered between his own and something hollow-eyed. A pale mask stretched too thin. I swung again, the crowbar slamming into his temple, bone crunching, and his body slumped still. The cab went quiet but not safe, because the broken glass at my side still shimmered with fragments of the reflection, and in each jagged piece tiny versions of Callahan twitched, smiling. My stomach twisted with nausea. I leaned over, grabbed the door handle, and shoved. His limp body tumbled onto the shoulder, hitting the asphalt with a wet thud. For a moment I just sat there, panting, staring at the empty passenger seat, wondering if I'd killed a man or something else entirely. Then the radio crackled again, sharp and jarring, my own voice low and urgent. That was only the first. "Keep driving." My skin crawled. I shoved the truck into gear, tires spitting gravel, the cab rattling as I barreled down the road faster than I ever had. But the silence that followed was worse than the static. My thoughts clawed at me. Had I just murdered another driver, someone trapped like me? Or had I killed something wearing his skin? My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The road behind was empty, Callahan's body gone. Not lying in the headlights, not dragged away, just gone. The wheel nearly slipped from my hands. The rules had never warned me about this. As the trees thickened on either side, a shape emerged ahead. A wooden marker, old and rotting, carved with numbers barely visible in the high beams. A mile marker Harris had circled on the map. I slowed slightly, chest tight, because someone was standing beside it. Not Callahan. A woman, tall and thin, her reflective vest glowing, her hands clasped around a radio pressed to her chest. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stood still, her eyes locked on my windshield. My throat closed. The rules whispered again. Do not stop unless you recognize the driver. And somehow in the sweep of the headlights I did. It was Harris's daughter. I'd seen her photo once in his office, smiling next to him at a company cookout. My hands shook violently on the wheel. What the hell was she doing here, miles from anywhere, at 5 a.m. on a cursed road? I pressed the gas, but her voice boomed suddenly through my own radio, drowning the cab in static and words that weren't meant for me. He wasn't lying, Evan, there are more. They're not after you, they're after what you're carrying. My gut twisted because I hadn't thought of the cargo once, too consumed by the rules, the reflections, the voices. I risked a glance into the back through the small partition. The cargo hold was sealed, locked tight with a heavy latch I hadn't questioned since the start of the route. My skin went cold. They weren't just hunting me, they were after whatever I was delivering, and maybe Callahan, real or not, had been trying to tell me that. My mind spun as the truck roared past the marker, the woman fading into the darkness, her eyes burning in my mind. The road ahead stretched infinite, but everything had changed. The rules weren't about me, they were about protecting the package. The engine droned steady as I tore down the backroads, but every bump in the asphalt rattled through my bones, each vibration reminding me of the weight sitting in the back of the truck. I had never once questioned what I was hauling, never thought to ask Harris what was inside the sealed hold. But after that voice, the woman who looked like his daughter, everything shifted. They weren't after me, she'd said. They were after what I was carrying. My palms were slick on the wheel. I stole another glance toward the partition that separated me from the cargo bay. Just a metal panel, dented, scratched, with a sliding latch lock. It had always been shut, always off limits, but now it felt like an animal cage, and I was the fool driving it through the dark. The rules never mentioned the cargo. They only mentioned the road, the lights, the reflections. What if the whole thing was a distraction? Something to keep drivers focused forward, never back. My gut twisted. I reached for the radio, static fizzing faintly. "Harris," I whispered before I realized how stupid it sounded. He was dead. I saw him die. Or thought I did. My voice shook as I tried again. "If anyone's out there, what the hell am I carrying?" Silence. Then faint and warped a reply. "Don't look." The voice bled through static like a scream underwater. My knuckles whitened on the wheel. I felt like a hook had been planted in my brain, tugging me back toward that door. I drove another mile before I couldn't resist anymore. Pulling the truck onto the shoulder, I shoved it into park, the night pressing against the windows like a living thing. My hands shook as I reached for the latch. The cold metal bit into my skin. Just one slide and I'd know. My chest pounded as I drew the lock back. A hiss of air escaped, stale and chemical. I pushed the panel open an inch, enough to let the dashboard glow spill inside. What I saw wasn't freight. It was containment. Strapped crates, reinforced steel boxes bolted to the floor, chains crisscrossed, padlocks glinting. Symbols were painted on the sides, old stencils half scratched away. Triangles, circles, letters I didn't recognize. And one box at the center pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. My breath caught. I slammed the panel shut, the lock snapping home, my pulse screaming in my ears. I'd seen enough. Whatever this was, it wasn't packages for a warehouse. I sat frozen for minutes, staring at the windshield until a pounding sound snapped me back. From the cargo bay. 3 heavy thuds, deliberate. My stomach lurched. Then a voice, muffled but sharp, pressed against the metal. My voice. "Evan, let me out." My mouth went dry. The rules had warned me about reflections, voices, doubles. But this wasn't in the mirror or the woods, it was in my truck. I scrambled for the radio, desperate. "What the hell is in there?" Static shrieked, then broke. A male voice I hadn't heard before, calm, level. "Don't stop. Deliver it. Do not open again. If you do, they'll know where you are." I dropped the mic like it had burned me. My mind fractured between rage and terror. They'd been using me all along, a pawn on wheels, dragging something monstrous across the state. And the rules weren't protection, they were chains. My chest heaved as I started the truck again, headlights blazing forward. But the pounding didn't stop. It followed steady, timed with the turn of the tires. Each slam against the metal felt like it was testing me, waiting for me to crack. And then something new, laughter. My own voice, but warped, echoing from the bay. "You broke the rules, Evan. You let him in. You killed him. Do you even know which one he was?" I gritted my teeth, tears stinging my eyes. "Shut up," I muttered, hitting the wheel. The laughter deepened, shaking the whole cab. My eyes darted to the side mirror. For a split second, I saw myself sitting in the passenger seat, grinning wide, before the reflection blinked away. My stomach turned to stone. The rules were unraveling. I drove blind for miles, my mind a hurricane. The cargo, the voices, the rules. All pieces of a puzzle I was never meant to solve. And yet I couldn't stop thinking about the way the central box pulsed, like it was alive, like it was calling to me. As the sky bled the first hint of dawn, I spotted a diner up ahead, neon buzzing weak in the gray light. Harris had marked it on the map as a safe checkpoint. I pulled in, shaky engine idling as I stared at the building. Empty parking lot. Windows dark. But smoke curled faintly from the chimney and the scent of coffee wafted even from here. I should have felt relief. Instead, dread curdled in my gut. Because written in the condensation on the inside of the glass door in shaky letters were 3 words. "Don't deliver it." My hands froze on the wheel. Behind me, in the cargo bay, the pounding stopped. Silence swallowed the world. Then a soft rhythmic tapping began, like fingers drumming on the inside of the door. And this time the voice that followed wasn't mine. It was Harris. "Evan, for God's sake, listen." The letters on the diner glass still burned in my head. "Don't deliver it," while the truck idled, vibrating beneath me like it shared the same nervous energy crawling through my skin. The tapping from the cargo bay had stopped, leaving a silence worse than noise, but then his voice came through again. Harris, calm, steady, just like I remembered from those long nights when he trained me. A cup of burnt coffee in his hand and that tired look in his eyes. "Evan, it's me. Open the door." My chest locked. Harris had been dead. I saw him slump against the wheel, blood on his shirt, eyes wide. But hearing him now cracked everything open inside me. My hands shook as I slid from the driver's seat, boots crunching gravel as I circled to the back. The air outside was cold, damp with the early morning mist, and the neon from the diner sputtered in and out, painting the lot in sickly light. I stood at the rear door staring at the heavy latch, every muscle screaming to turn away. But then Harris spoke again, closer, like his mouth pressed against the metal. "You've done good, kid. Better than most. But they've been lying to you. You need to let me out before it's too late." My throat worked, dry as sand. "You're dead," I whispered. "I saw you die." A pause. Then a chuckle, soft but weary. "You saw what they wanted you to see. Think, Evan. How many times have they shown you doubles? How many times have you questioned your own eyes? They're playing with you. You know me better than that." The words pierced deeper than I wanted. He was right. Reflections, voices, passengers who weren't passengers. Every moment of this route twisted reality until I didn't know what was real anymore. My hand found the latch before I realized, fingers curling tight, sweat slick. "If it's really you," I said hoarsely, "then tell me something only you'd know." A beat of silence. "Then, that night at the depot 2 years ago, you locked yourself out of the cab. You sat on the curb for an hour smoking my cigarettes because you were too embarrassed to call dispatch. I never told anyone." My breath stopped. The memory was mine and mine alone. Harris had been the only witness. My chest heaved. "How do I know you didn't pull that out of my head?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "How do I know you're not one of them?" His reply was immediate, frustrated, almost pleading. "Because I raised you on this damn road, Evan. Because I told you never to trust what's in the mirror, and you've trusted me ever since. Open the door or everything you've done tonight will mean nothing." My knuckles whitened. Inside the bay, something shifted. A scrape of chains, the groan of metal under strain. My imagination filled the silence with images of what was in there. Callahan's twisted grin. My own reflection laughing. Or worse, something formless pressing against the crate walls. The rules screamed in my head. Do not open the cargo. Do not stop unless you recognize the driver. And here I was, standing in the dark, holding the latch with Harris's voice telling me both that he was alive and that I had been lied to. The diner's neon fizzed louder, buzzing like a warning. I spun, scanning the windows. The words "don't deliver." It had faded, wiped away by unseen hands. A figure moved inside the diner, pale in the gloom, watching me. My heart slammed. I turned back to the latch. "If I open this," I whispered, "and you're not Harris?" Silence stretched thin. Then his voice, firm, commanding. The same tone that had barked orders at me 100 times. "Then kill me. Don't hesitate. You know the rules." My hand trembled as I drew back the latch. The lock snapped, heavy door creaking as I dragged it open. The smell hit first, metal, oil, something like sulfur, and then the crates came into view. Chains hung loose, broken where they'd been bolted. At the far end, in the faint light from the diner, a figure sat on one of the steel boxes, elbows on his knees, staring at me. Harris, or what wore his face. His eyes were tired, bloodshot. His shirt wrinkled, the same one I'd seen stained with blood when he died. He smiled faintly, that same crooked grin that always came before a sarcastic jab. "Took you long enough." My knees nearly buckled. "You're supposed to be dead," I choked out. He shrugged. "Supposed to be, yeah. But you know better than to believe what this road shows you." He gestured at the crates around him. "They've been lying to you, Evan. You're not a driver. You're a courier, and what you're hauling, it's not packages. It's leverage. They're using you to move it. They'll do anything to keep you from knowing the truth." My mind reeled, but my eyes caught something behind him. The central crate, the one that had pulsed, now throbbed brighter, a low hum radiating through the air. Harris noticed my gaze. "Don't look at it too long," he warned sharply. "It gets in your head." My chest tightened. "If you're real, then tell me why I shouldn't just end this right now. Drive the truck into a ditch and let it burn." His eyes locked on mine, desperate. "Because if you do, you'll take me with it. And maybe yourself too. We're bound to it now. That's why they chose us." The words sank into me like knives. Bound to it, chosen? None of it made sense, but his voice carried that weight, that authority he always had. And yet something felt wrong. His reflection in the steel wall of the crate behind him twitched, smiling wider than his real mouth. My stomach dropped. My grip on the crowbar tightened as my brain screamed two truths at once. Harris was alive and Harris was a lie. The diner's neon flickered violently, shadows darting across the lot. Harris leaned forward, his voice low, urgent. You don't have much time, Evan. Decide, are you with me or with them? The diner's neon blinked one last time and went dark, leaving only the truck's dull headlights cutting through the mist. The world felt suspended, like everything beyond the lot had folded away. Harris sat on that crate watching me, his eyes too familiar and too wrong at the same time. His voice carried across the steel bay, calm but edged. You've got to decide, Evan. If you're with me, we open it and finish what we started. If not, you shut this door and keep driving like a good little errand boy. My pulse thundered, palms slick against the crowbar. The rules carved into my memory burned hotter with every second. Never open the cargo, never stop for what you can't explain, never believe what sounds like the truth when it comes too easy. And yet Harris had given me something the rules never did. Human connection, memories too sharp to fake. The way he said my name. The way his shoulders hunched like they always did after a long shift. But behind him, the reflection still smirked wider, teeth bared in a grin he didn't wear. I whispered, my voice breaking. If I choose wrong, I die. Isn't that it? Harris tilted his head, smiling faintly. You already died once, kid. You just haven't realized it yet. My stomach dropped. He tapped the glowing crate behind him, and the hum grew louder, pressing against my chest like a second heartbeat. This isn't cargo. It's alive. And if we don't help it, it'll take what it wants by force. You've felt it, haven't you? The way the air bends when it pulses. That's it reaching out. I swallowed hard, bile creeping up. Why me? Why us? He leaned forward, eyes locking with mine, desperation raw. Because we were stupid enough to follow the rules without asking why. Because we were loyal. And loyalty is the perfect leash. His words cut deep. That was me. Desperate to keep a paycheck. Desperate not to end up like my father. Clinging to routine no matter how twisted it became. I lowered the crowbar, stepping closer, my boots clanging against the ramp. His grin widened, relief washing his face. That's it, Evan, you know what's right. Help me set it free and we take control back. But as I neared, the reflection behind him shifted again. It didn't smirk this time, it mouthed something. I froze, staring. The lips in the reflection formed the words, don't trust. My head spun. Harris, I rasped, and what if you're not you? What if this is just another trick? His face darkened, that old temper flashing in his eyes. I taught you everything. You'd rather trust a scrap of glass than me? After everything we've done? He stood now, hands balling into fists. You think you can survive this road without me? They'll chew you up and spit you out. I'm the only one who knows how to beat them. The hum behind him swelled, rattling the steel walls. My vision blurred, ears ringing. Something inside the crate wanted out, wanted me to say yes. I stumbled back, crowbar trembling in my grip. If I open it, what happens? I demanded. He hesitated. Just for a second, but I saw it, the flicker of calculation. Then we're free, he said too quickly. My chest seized. I remembered the night he died, the way his eyes had gone glassy, the way the road had seemed to sigh in relief afterward. What if his death had been the only reason I survived this long? My knuckles whitened. Or maybe, I said slowly, you're just another leash. Another mask. His jaw clenched. The reflection behind him grinned again, wider, stretching unnatural. My decision snapped into place like a trap closing. I'm not opening it. His face twisted with rage. Then you're already dead. He lunged. The bay exploded into chaos. I swung the crowbar, metal cracking against his arm with a sickening thud, but he didn't flinch. His strength wasn't right, too much, too fast. He slammed into me, knocking me into the doorframe, stars bursting in my vision. His breath was hot against my ear, his voice a snarl. You think you get to choose? You're cargo, Evan. Always have been. I roared, shoving with everything I had, the crowbar jamming between us. His eyes flashed, not human anymore, but glowing faintly with the same sick light as the crate. My chest filled with cold fire. With a desperate scream, I wrenched free and drove the crowbar through his reflection instead. The steel wall shattered like glass, spraying shards across the bay. Harris froze, his face contorting in horror. The grin on the reflection ripped wide, then burst into nothing. He staggered, clutching his chest, gasping like he'd been gutted. You idiot, he wheezed, collapsing against the crate. The hum faltered, stuttering as if wounded. I stumbled back, panting, crowbar slick with blood. His blood or mine, I couldn't tell. The bay fell silent except for his ragged breathing. Evan, he rasped, voice barely human. You don't understand. They'll never let you finish this run. His eyes rolled back and he slumped lifeless. For real this time. I collapsed against the frame, shaking, bile rising. My hands were covered in crimson. The air around the crate shivered like heat haze, furious, alive. I slammed the door shut and locked it, chest heaving, every nerve screaming that I hadn't ended anything. Just made it worse. The diner lights flicked on again, harsh and blinding. But when I looked back through the window, the place was empty. No figures, no warnings, just silence. I climbed back into the cab, crowbar clattering onto the passenger seat. My reflection in the windshield stared back at me, pale, eyes wild. For a heartbeat, it smirked. I don't even remember turning the key, but the engine roared back to life and the truck lurched forward, as if it wanted to run from that diner faster than I did. Tires skidding across gravel before catching the pavement. Headlights carving a shaky path through the fog-drenched Georgia night. My hands clutched the wheel so tight my knuckles ached. Harris's blood still tacky across my shirt. The crowbar clattering at every turn in the passenger seat like a reminder of what I'd done. But worse than the memory of him collapsing was the sound from the back. The crate wasn't humming anymore. It was rattling, groaning like old timbers straining under a storm. And every few seconds, something inside slammed against the steel walls hard enough to make the whole trailer shudder. My pulse hammered. The rules repeated in my skull like a prayer. Never open the cargo, never look back when it calls, keep moving until the last mile marker. But now the rules felt like a sick joke, because the thing wasn't waiting politely anymore. It was trying to claw its way free, and if it did, then everything I'd tried to protect by staying loyal would crumble on this road tonight. The radio crackled suddenly, hissing with static, and through it came a voice that wasn't a voice, layered and distorted, like multiple mouths speaking over each other. "Driver, you can't keep us contained. Your blood has already chosen." I slapped the radio off, heart hammering, but the words didn't stop. They reverberated in my skull like they were coming from inside. Sweat burned my eyes. I pressed harder on the gas, the truck rattling as it pushed past the safe speed. Fog streaming around the cab, trees looming on either side like sentinels watching my every move. Then the first crack came, a sharp metallic screech from the trailer behind me, followed by a burst of cold air rushing forward through the cabin vents, stinking of earth and rot. I gagged, choking as I gripped the wheel, eyes darting to the mirror. For a split second I saw it, something black and shifting pushing against the trailer door from the inside, warping the steel outward like a balloon ready to pop. Not yet, I muttered, slamming my fist against the dashboard, praying to hold together until the final drop point. But the road wasn't helping. It twisted sharper, darker, like it was lengthening the closer I drove. The mile markers repeating numbers they shouldn't, 27 flashing by 3 times in a row, 28 disappearing altogether. The world wasn't obeying anymore, and I realized with a jolt of dread that maybe Harris had been right about one thing. The cargo didn't need permission. It was already rewriting the rules. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and against every instinct I yanked it out with one trembling hand. The screen lit up with a number I hadn't seen in years, my father's. Dead 10 years, buried in the clay of this very state. The call blinked. "Dad." My chest caved in, but I answered anyway, throat raw. Silence at first, then his voice clear as the last time I saw him drunk at the kitchen table. "Evan, pull over. Let it out. You don't want to die like me." Tears burned hot, rage and grief tangling until I nearly swerved. "You're not him," I spat, slamming the phone shut, hurling it across the cab where it cracked against the dash. The radio flicked itself back on, the same layered voices mocking now. "You deny your blood, then you'll die in it." Another slam shook the trailer louder, denting the steel door outward. I could see it bulging in the rearview mirror, wet and slick like something breathing. The straps groaned, one snapping with a metallic twang that made my skin crawl. I knew I had minutes, maybe seconds before it broke free. And the only thought in my head was to keep the damn wheels moving until I saw the final drop point. But then the road betrayed me again. Ahead, the asphalt split into 2 paths where there should have only been one. The main highway and a side road that led deeper into the woods, unlit, narrow, branches hanging low. The signs were warped, letters scrambled like some cruel joke. Left survival, right oblivion. My heart stuttered. I gripped the wheel, sweat pouring, because how the hell do you choose when both signs are written by something that wants you dead? Behind me, another crash. This time the whole trailer lurched, sparks spitting as metal scraped pavement. The cargo was winning. I made a choice not with logic but with desperation. I jerked the wheel left, tires screeching, the rig nearly toppling before leveling out. Gravel spit in every direction as I barreled down the road. praying I hadn't just driven into the jaws of the thing hunting me. For a moment, it seemed quiet again, the rattling dimming, the steel door holding. Relief bubbled up, fragile. Then I saw the mile marker ahead, 27 again. My stomach dropped. The road was looping me no matter which way I turned. I slammed the wheel, roaring curses, and the trailer answered with a scream of its own, high-pitched and metallic, the final strap snapping. The back door exploded open in my mirror and something vast and black surged forward, tendrils slamming against the pavement, dragging itself out like a nightmare being birthed. My chest seized. I floored the gas, engine howling, headlights bouncing as the truck roared over cracked asphalt. The thing clung to the trailer, half in, half out, its shape shifting between forms. Sometimes Harris, sometimes my father, sometimes just a void. My rear view shattered as one tendril lashed forward, cracking the glass like ice. "Drive, Evan," the voices snarled, "or let us drive you." My body screamed to bail, to leap from the cab and vanish into the trees. But some stubborn part of me, the same part that obeyed every rule no matter how twisted, forced my hands to the wheel. If this road wanted me to brake, it would have to take me kicking. Ahead, finally, a light through the fog. A checkpoint booth, small, yellowed by age, its single lamp buzzing. The last drop point. I gritted my teeth, blood trickling from my nose as I screamed, slamming the pedal to the floor. The thing shrieked behind me, furious, pulling harder against the trailer as if it knew what waited at that booth. My reflection in the windshield smirked again, mouthing words I couldn't hear. I just kept driving because if I slowed for even a second, I knew I'd never see daylight again. The booth's yellow lamp grew larger in the windshield, flickering like it might burn out any second, and I clung to it like a drowning man to driftwood, the last shred of normal in a night that had swallowed everything else. The trailer behind me screamed, metal twisting and groaning as the cargo dragged itself against the pavement, tendrils clawing at the road like anchors, but I pushed the truck harder, tires squealing as if they, too, wanted to reach that booth before whatever lived in the dark tore us both apart. My chest felt like it was caving, every breath shallow, my vision swimming with black spots, but I kept muttering the rules under my breath like they were scripture. Don't stop, don't open, don't look back. The booth loomed ahead, a man inside standing in silhouette, hand lazily tapping a clipboard like this was just another night shift. I slammed the brakes, the rig shrieking to a halt inches from the barrier. The figure leaned forward, face finally lit by the buzzing bulb. Harris. Not broken, not bloodied, not the man I'd left dying on that diner floor. He was clean, crisp uniform, eyes sharp like he'd never known fear. "You made it," he said simply, voice too calm for the chaos unraveling behind me. My mouth went dry. "You're dead. I saw..." He cut me off with a smile that wasn't a smile. "We don't die, Evan, not in the way you think. You've carried the cargo. That means you're part of it now." My stomach flipped, the words hitting harder than any tendril ever could. I tried to laugh, a broken sound. I delivered the damn thing. I followed every rule. Harris shook his head, clipboard flipping open to a page I recognized instantly. The rules list. Only now there was a 10th one scrawled at the bottom in thick black ink. Rule 10. The driver becomes the delivered. My pulse stopped cold. Behind me, the trailer split open completely. Black sludge and shapes spilling onto the asphalt. Faces blooming inside it, my father, Callahan. Even Harris, all grinning in unison as if waiting for me to join the choir. My reflection in the windshield smiled too, lips moving on their own. "You thought you were carrying it," it whispered, voice sliding out of my own throat now. "But we've been carrying you." My hands wouldn't let go of the wheel. My legs locked to the pedals, the cab sealing itself around me like a coffin. Harris stepped closer, clipboard in hand, eyes boring into mine. "Every road needs a driver, Evan. You were chosen the moment you touched the keys. The cargo is just teaching you what you already are." The ground shook, asphalt splitting, the booth's lamp flickering violently. The black mass surged forward, wrapping the truck in slick tendrils, pulling it down into the crack opening beneath us. I screamed, but the sound came out doubled, tripled, voices overlapping until I couldn't tell mine from theirs. The windshield glass rippled like water, my reflection stepping out of it, climbing into the cab beside me, sliding into my skin like it had always belonged. Pain tore through me, bones snapping, muscles twisting, but underneath it all a clarity spread, cold and undeniable. I hadn't been fighting to survive. I'd been resisting what I was always meant to become. The truck lurched once more, headlights exploding into pure white, and then the world collapsed. Silence. When I opened my eyes, I was behind the wheel again, but the road was empty, endless, stretching out into a horizon that didn't shift no matter how far I drove. The trailer hummed steady now, calm, content. I didn't need to check it. I knew what was inside. I knew because I could feel it moving with my own heartbeat. I drove because that's what I was built for now. No more questions, no more choices. Just the rules. Always the rules. And as I speak these words, maybe you think you're safe, sitting there listening, lights on, doors locked. But the cargo doesn't stay in one place. It needs drivers. It needs listeners. Every time I tell this story, the rules spread a little further. So if you hear your phone buzz at midnight tonight and see my name on the screen, don't answer. Don't even look. Because if you do, you'll find yourself in the driver's seat, staring down a road in the dark Georgia woods, cargo humming in the back, headlights cutting through fog. And when you see that booth at the end, you'll realize what I did too late. The delivery was never the box. The delivery was always you.